Hello and welcome to the webinar on bully prevention. So this is great. We've got more folks on and let's get started. My name is Suzanne Lane. I'm a parent training coordinator for PSN. I am the parent of children with both physical and mental disabilities. They are the driving force in my life. Our family recently relocated to the Treasure Coast from Tennessee. Having actively advocated for my children for over 30 years, I'm a 2016 Partners in Policymaking graduate from Tennessee, certified family support specialist in Tennessee, and it takes a village to raise a child. Working collaboratively with other organizations, we can empower caregivers to know how to be effectively advocate for their loved ones. This leads to a better quality of life for everyone. So my contact information will be shown at the end of the webinar. During this webinar, your mics will be muted to ensure that we cover all the information in the time provided. But you will be able to ask questions in the chat feature section located on the right-hand side of your screen. To address your questions at the end of the webinar, for your privacy, we ask that you do not share your personal information, such as your email address or phone number, during this presentation. If I'm unable to answer your questions, please feel free to email me or call me directly and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Again, my contact information will be provided for your convenience at the end of the webinar. First, let me briefly talk about F&D. We are a nonprofit organization that began as a grassroots organization in 1985. What makes us unique is that we are literally family-driven. What I mean by that is that our majority of our board of directors and all of our management staff and all of our program staff are parents or family members of persons with disabilities. Some of our staff have disabilities themselves, and we work in an inclusive, collaborative setting that promotes our beliefs that respect, independence, and knowledge are a big part of who we are. So when family members call F&D, they not only receive the expertise and knowledge of a professional, but also the compassion and empathy of someone who has walked and continues to walk in their shoes. We are compassionate about everything that we do. We do not act as attorneys. We do not represent families, and we do not give legal advice. We do provide support. F&D has been the statewide parent-to-parent since 1985, and the value of families getting support by networking with other families is built into everything we do. We often get calls from parents or other family members who just need to talk, and we're there to listen. We do provide information. Although F&D logs over 15,000 calls a year, most of them from parents and family members or professionals who are looking for information, we have a large database of resources in Florida and a library filled with disability-related information. Regardless of the question, our staff goes the extra mile to find answers. Our philosophy at F&D is that it is not our role to tell families what to do. It is our role, however, to inform families of what their options are and encourage them to make the best decisions about what is right for their family. I've done welcome and introductions. We're going to be going over the goal and objectives. We're going to be doing the workshop. And then last but not least, I need you to fill out the evaluations that I will send you an email form. And when I get those, I will then send you an attendance certificate for your records. We have two goals today: to increase awareness of bullying behaviors and the impact of behaviors on victims. The second, to create an individual action plan to heighten awareness of bullying behaviors at school and or home. Our objectives are to define bullying behavior. We're going to learn the dynamics of bullying and victim behaviors, learn bullying prevention and intervention strategies that work based on research. We're going to develop an action plan, we're going to learn about resources for information and support. So I'm asking you, how would you define bullying? And I know that all of us would be correct. The important piece to remember is that bullying is a real or perceived imbalance of power, has to exist. Examples are that the bully is older, physically bigger, stronger, or it's a group of people against one person. Belief by the victim and the bully that the bully can and will do what they threaten, and or a belief by the victim that they are powerless to be able to help themselves. There is 4 pieces to this. There is the physical, which is the punching, poking, pulling hair, beating. There's the verbal, name calling, teasing, gossip. Emotional, the things that affect us: rejection, terrorizing, extorting, defaming, humiliation, blackmailing. And there's the sexual, that these can sit alone as one way of bullying, or they can be multiple ways of bullying that are done all at one time. Cyberbullying is a new communication technology or torment of others. Cyberbullying can occur anywhere, including school, and continue over to our homes. It reaches out everywhere. There are many forms of cyberbullying. We have cell phones, we have Snapchat, Facebook. There are many, many ways that this can reach to us. One in 4 people reported that they are being bullied with some regularity. How common is bullying? In reading this, we see that in the Midwest, 88% of students reported having been observed bullying, and 76% indicated they had been a victim of bullying. This means that approximately 8 out of 10 students report seeing bullying behavior, and 3 out of 4 students report having been bullied in this study. Note at the bottom, this is where the information comes from. If we look at this study, we will see that 1,632 students in grades 8 to 11, 85% are girls, 76% are boys, reported experiencing some sort of sexual harassment. Once again, approximately 3 out of 4 students reported experiencing a form of being bullied by being sexually harassed. Based on this information, it appears that bullying is a common behavior that our students and children are experiencing. There are family factors that contribute. Some family factors are a lack of attention and warmth through the child and modeling aggressive behavior at home. Studies indicate aggressive behavior of all kinds is elevated in children who witness domestic violence. While bullying is a common factor in behavior, it doesn't mean that it's an acceptable behavior. Because it is a common behavior, we do have certain beliefs about bullying based on our experiences and perhaps what we are taught as children about bullies. Let's look at possible factors that contribute to bullying behavior. Because all behavior is goal-directed. We are motivated to behave in certain ways for a certain reason, and it's helpful to know that these factors, what these factors are, so that we can intervene in the bullying behavior. The, the factor of temperament. Temperament is a child's basic personality style. It's a style of interaction with others. Children with an active and impulsive temperament may be more inclined to develop into bullies. A child who is easily frustrated becomes physical and or verbally aggressive in an attempt to get its immediate attentions met. Let me ask, what do you think that the hallways and playgrounds and bus stops are common places for bullying? Bullying usually does not occur in front of adults because the bully knows that the behavior will draw the attention and defeat the purpose of the goal of the bullying, power over another. If an adult sees and intervenes with bullying, the bully does not gain the power she is seeking. What do you think about the gender differences? Boys tend to be perpetrators of victims in direct bullying, which involves a physical or verbal attacks. Girls are more likely to be perpetrators and victims of indirect bullying, which involves social exclusion, manipulation of friendship relationships, spreading rumors. Let's take a look at this slide. We see a lot of characteristics of bullies here. Put yourselves in my shoes. Think about this for a moment. Have you been the victim? Have you been the bully? It says a lot. Victims are impulsive and react quickly intentional and unintentional physical encounters. In some cases, these children become bullies as they try to retaliate. A reactive victim may say, "You better watch out. I'm going to tell the teacher and you will be in trouble." This may provoke the bully who then bullies again. The victim fights back. Proactive victims need to learn how to avoid bullies. So let's look at the dynamics of bullying. Let's review the slide. Bullies are more powerful, real or perceived, more confident, aggressive, and lack empathy for a victim. They bully so that adults are not aware. Victims are powerless, real or perceived. They may be quiet and passive and don't respond effectively to the aggression. They feel shame and fear, often do not tell an adult. Remember that the definition of a bully must include real or perceived imbalance. In the upcoming slides, we're going to talk about some strategies to use. What about the child watching? What about the teacher or the adult? Can they have similar feelings? May avoid school, experience significant psychological harm affecting the child. In extreme situations, some victims become more distressed at the point of committing or attempting suicide. What is the long-term impact on bullying? They may feel fairly popular to grade 6. In high school, they may experiment with sex, alcohol, or drugs. 1/3 of the victims are bullies themselves. They're at higher risk for depression and suicidal thoughts. In adulthood, they have a higher rate of antisocial behavior to include committing crimes, battered spouses, or abuse their own children, higher rate of alcoholism. What are some of the long-term effects? So let's talk about what's the impact on the bystanders. Can cause fear and anxiety, negatively affecting the learning environment. Children may follow bullying leads and help in the victimization. Children may use aggression in the future when they see there's no negative consequences for the bully. So how do we intervene with a victim at school? We always want to remember that there has to be confidentiality. Confidentiality and safety procedures for students have to be in place in order to help them. So under the new federal law, students who experience violence at school have the right to request a transfer to another school. And that's in section 9532 of the unsafe choice option. And it reads as follows: unsafe schools policy choice. Each state receiving funds under this act shall establish and implement a statewide policy requiring that students attending a dangerous school, elementary or secondary school, as determined by the state in conclusion with a representative sample of local educational agencies, or who becomes a victim of violent crime offense as determined by the state law, while in or on the grounds of a public elementary school or secondary school, and the student attends, will be allowed to attend a safe public elementary school or secondary school with the local education agencies. So knowing that schools have to take action is important. So in this step, we want to intervene with the victim. And we want to call for reinforcements by calling the parents and solicit for that help. And we need to reteach children and teach children how to diffuse the situation. Refer to counseling if they need that help. And this comes from the U.S. Department of Education. Again, we cannot say enough about confidentiality and safety procedures. So take immediate action when intervening with the bully. Avoid attempts to mediate. Do not mediate. Confront the bullies in private and notify parents. And refer for counseling as needed. Sometimes we need that extra help in order to reteach. What are some signs that your child may be a victim? Some of the signs can include fear of going to school, increased fearfulness in general, anxiety, lack of friends, missing belongings. Are their clothes being torn? Do they have unexplained bruises? Being aware of the changes in your child's habits or things around them will help you identify if your child could be a victim. When a problem behavior is reported, adults can follow a specific response sequence. They can reinforce the student for reporting the problem behavior and tell them, I'm glad that you told me. And we can ask how, who, what, when, or where. Document this so that you know, is the bullying still happening? Is the reporting child at risk? Is there a fear of revenge? Reassure that your child that it's not their fault. Contact the school and work collaboratively to ensure your child's safety. Offer support to your child. Teach your child skills to diffuse the situation. And we're going to talk about some of those skills coming up. If the problem persists, what do? You may need outside help. What does that look like? Signs that your child could be a bully. Has money or items they cannot. It's the opposite of the victim. Many behavior problems can be prevented by correcting and using effective behavior management strategies. These researches are based on research and demonstrated to work. So it's effective for preventing and correcting this behavior. So there are things that we can do. So if your child is a bully, we can talk. We can hold our children accountable. Techniques for managing the aggressive behavior of students include prevention and intervention. Prevention strategies focus on the stopping of the behavior before it gets started. Intervention techniques focus on stopping that behavior after it gets started. So all of these are things that can contribute to bullying behavior. So we need to model non-bullying behavior at home. And we need to get that support and help for our child. For some, this does not come naturally. That's why we need to practice and be proactive. I think about how my children are different. One would always say, "Thank you." Always used their manners, always. In my other child, there was no manners. There was no thanking anyone. It was always, we had to work by practicing these thank you skills. We look at the school system, and we know that as a parent, if we look at the student handbook, they have policies on bullying prevention. So understanding those helps us know how they're working with our children. So we work with our schools adopting an anti-bullying whole school program that includes the training of all staff and recognize and how to intervene in bullying behavior. And we need to make a social climate of warmth and acceptance. Schools need to have adequate reporting systems as well. They need to encourage teachers and staff to report the incidents. This way, the school can provide a way to protect students and prevent these circumstances from occurring again. Reporting can also help track the individual incidences and responses so that you can see if there's a trend across the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. That's the system that's used to possibly look at future incidents, how they can be prevented. By making the reporting system easy to use and confidential, it needs to be confidential, encourage staff to be using this. Communication is not only verbal. A school can also provide nonverbal cues. These cues can be included in the interior decorations like signs. It includes teachers and staff. It includes the exterior of the school to look and send strong messages to students and parents about whether the school fosters a positive environment. If it does not send a good message, bullying is likely to occur. We always need to keep in mind that safety for students in attempting to diffuse a situation. This is not about putting oneself at risk in harm's way. An example of defusing a problem situation from the U.S. Department of Education is in students, either individually or a group, talking about pulling the bully aside and asking him or her to just cool it off. Cool it off, pull them aside, but don't put yourself in harm's way in attempting to diffuse a situation. Communities, bullying can be prevented, especially if the power of the community is brought together. Here is an action plan that we can work on together. As parents, we can talk to our children about bullying behavior. We can share a little bit about what we've learned with this workshop and work with our schools on an anti-bullying program. Educators can research anti-bullying programs and curriculum. Talk with parents and staff and facilities, faculties, and students about implementing an anti-bullying program. Involve everyone in this. And then mostly share about information that you've learned through this workshop and other workshops that you may attend. That's how we get that word out. So, how we respond as adults can make a difference. Understanding and being prepared is crucial. So, what can we do next? We can talk about the 4 B's. Oops, I'm so sorry. We can talk about the 4 B's, and the 4 B's are: be safe, be responsible, be respectful. Be respectful of others. This is the RTI model that shows some of the steps the schools are using to prevent bullying. In here, this is the school-wide positive behavioral support, where it shows where they are using this data to prevent the bullying. Attention is focuses on creating and sustaining the universal levels. Universal level 1 on the bottom is for all students. And then tier 2, we target some group support for some students. And then tier 3, if children are really struggling with being victims or bullying, then that tier is for the few students. These systems of support help improve lifestyles results, so personal health, social, family, work, and recreation for all children and youth, making problems behavior less effective, efficient, and relative, and desired behavior more functional. So you can see here where it has to be the whole school's culture. We have to provide training for all adults, provide indirect supports for students. Tier 1, here you can see the tier 1, that's the whole school for everyone. And we need to reward positive behaviors. Now we're going to talk about a strategy that's called stop, walk, and talk. So, parents, if you hear your students say stop, that's what we want them to do when someone is treating them in a disrespectful, hurtful, or unsafe way. Then they're following through on this unsafe way. And it's one of the first steps on bully prevention program. So the stop, walk, and talk teaches students how to respond if other students are not following the 4 B's, the be respectful, be safe, be responsible, and be ready. Stop signal requires them to look directly at the other student, take the hand signal for stop, and say stop. And we want to encourage students to use a stop signal when they're being bullied or if they see someone else being bullied. Very clear. Hands straight out in front. Stop. But then sometimes, even when we tell others to stop, the problem behavior will continue. When this happens, students are taught to walk away from the problem behavior. Remember that walking away removes the reinforcement for problem behavior. It teaches students to encourage one another to use the appropriate response. This is used by both children, the victim and the bully. When the hand goes out, we walk away. Eventually, every student will be told to stop. When this happens, they should do the following things. Stop what they're doing. Take a deep breath. And go about their day. As in, no big deal. These steps should be followed even when they don't agree with the stop. So the person that's being told stop needs to walk away. And we need to teach that. So if they walk away and the problem isn't being resolved, they can then go and talk to someone, to an adult. Remember, we need to emphasize the need for confidentiality and the safety procedures for students. These procedures are written out in the student handbook. And if they're not, we need to, as parents, work with our schools and talk about this. So, how do we respond? On the next slides, we're going to talk about working with your child. So we're taking that deep breath and we're going to go about our day. But how do we talk to our children about what's happened? Catching our child doing it right means that we need to practice to be prepared. So this is one step where we try to remove the labels of the bully and the victim, and we address the behaviors. So the first one we go over, reinforce the student for discussing the problem with you. So I'm going to use a child's fictitious name, and I'm going to use Johnny. Did Johnny tell you to stop? If your child responds yes, how did you respond? And you talk about that. So, did Stephanie walk away? If yes, how did you respond? And follow and practice this. These are things that we can practice at home so that they're prepared for these situations. Practicing means that we're being proactive and not reactive. Then we're not caught off guard. Now, we want to reward our students. We need to use patience and understanding from both teachers and parents. And some pointing out the good behavior acknowledges and reinforces that behavior. This way, the student will be more likely to engage in the positive behavior again. And I know that's not easy to do. Not many people choose to reinforce good behavior because we expect that good behavior. This is a problem. When a child is always getting into trouble, then catching them being good is hard sometimes, but it is positive and reinforcing. And this information comes from Mahoney in 2012. So pointing out that good behavior acknowledges and reinforces that behavior, this way that the student will be more likely to engage in positive behavior again, just like setting clear rules, and it reinforces these rules. Reinforcing good behavior will give our students clear and expectations of what we want to do in a positive way. So if my child was given the hand signal to stop, the goal is, I tell my child, if somebody gives you that hand signal and says stop, I want you to walk away. And when you're talking to your child and ask them, did they get an opportunity to practice some of the new skills that they learned? Give them a high five. Reward them and acknowledge that they did the correct things. So, for chronic victims of bullying and harassment, what I was talking about was like a check-in and check-out report and keeping track of the incidents. Document this. So this may seem difficult, but we have to support the youth. We can use this strategy at home as well as an outgoing when we're going out somewhere else. We check in. So at the beginning of recess, and I'm going to actually, since the recess is up there, I'm going to give the example of we're going to the zoo. And we talk about what do we do? We need to check in with them. What do we need to do? If someone gives you the hand signal, what do you do? If someone's saying something to you and it's making you feel uncomfortable and you feel like they are bullying you, remember, it's a perceived or real situation. We have the right to put our hands up in front of us and say, stop. This, and then we reward them, reminding them at the end of the day. It's the same for the perpetrators. We need to teach in a positive way. When using this strategy, we have to be consistent. This helps us practice, and we can use the strategy again at home as well as an outing that we're going to attend. That's the hard part for a family, and I know that for me that was very hard, is being constantly consistent every time we went in order for us to be able to practice this strategy. This poem is by Dorothy Lull Knowlton. It is a reminder to all of us that we have a responsibility to look at what we as adults teach and model to children through our own choices and behaviors. So I'm going to read this poem to you. I want you to close your eyes and I want you to kind of think about this. If a child lives with criticism, he learns to condemn. If a child lives with hostility, she learns to fight. If a child lives with ridicule, he learns to be shy. If a child lives with shame, she learns to feel guilty. If a child lives with tolerance, he learns to be patient. If a child lives with encouragement, she learns confidence. If a child lives with praise, he learns to appreciate. If a child lives with fairness, she learns to justice. If a child lives with security, he learns to have faith. If a child lives with approval, she learns to like herself. If a child lives with acceptance and friendship, he learns to find love in the world. This is very empowering, and it's a lot of pressure. But we too learn and continue learning as we reteach ourselves how to act. This is a web link to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. This course here on this link examines the state-of-the-art research. This is an interactive website providing supports for parents, educators, communities, teens, and kids. It's both in English and in Spanish. More useful information and resources for you is the National Domestic Violence Hotline. The hotline will link you to your nearest domestic violence center. Information and referral for counseling is available through the center's hotlines. Additionally, many centers have educational outreach available to schools and the community at large. The National Sexual Hotline callers links callers to their closest sexual assault counseling program. Many of these programs can provide counseling for sexual harassment. They too often provide outreach for the education for schools and the community. And lastly but not least, the U.S. Department of Education. They have many free publications for parents on helping their children with school to include issues such as bullying and violence. The department also has information for educators and administrators on modeling programs for bullying, bullying prevention and intervention. And I want to introduce you to F&D University. This university is a 24 online distance learning system that will allow you to take a variety of friendly trainings in the comfort of your own home, just as this webinar today. This is a fully interactive training platform that will allow you to keep the transcript of your completion of each of these as they are completed. The trainings included such topics as understanding IDEA, parental engagement, effective communication, conflict resolution, and more. So I want to introduce you to our F&D family, for those of you that may not be familiar. The majority of these programs are funded by the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Special Education Programs, also known as OSEP. POPIN, which provides parent training and information services to the Panhandle of Florida, and you can see here, this is the area that they serve. PSN provides training in this area here for Central and Northeast of Florida. We are a part, or I am a part of this program. PEN, which is the Parent Training Information Center, also known as PTI Center, is in the 10 most southern counties of Florida, and you can see them right there. Family Star, which is here, this program will assist families of children and youth with special health care needs to make informed decisions about health care for their children, providing support, training, assistance, and resources, and they are located throughout the state of Florida. As so is Dadvocates. That is a network of dads that promote the involvement of fathers in the lives of their children with disabilities. This program is intended to provide father-to-father support throughout Florida. We can provide your support, your group, with specific workshop topics, or you can just meet for the father-to-father networking. Community outings, they have information and resources as well, and help with personal coping and a sense of unity among the dads. Our Special Needs Trust is a family network on disabilities providing comprehensive special needs trust services, including services such as trustee or co-trustee or administrative trust. Don't forget to complete our evaluation. We want to get your feedback. Your feedback is really important to us, and we want to continue to support our families. You are now a part of our family, and I want to thank you for attending today. I will be sending out the evaluation, and at that time, I will also send you, when I receive the evaluation, I will then send you a certificate for attending. So I want to look at, do I have any questions from anybody? Are there any questions that I can answer for you? I'm going to look down on here and see. I do not see any questions. So I want to thank you all for participating in our workshop on bullying prevention. And this concludes our presentation. We hope that you have found the information helpful, and we want you to know that we are here to help. We really appreciate your participation, and if I'm not able to answer any of your questions now and you feel more comfortable sending them to me, you can send them to my email here or call me, and I will answer your questions one-on-one. And so I want to thank you again for attending today, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.